This video is just one part of a complete set of videos with the title of Making Effective Selections. As you can see here, we're going to take a look at the magnetic lasso tool. If you've already viewed my video on the quick selection tool, you're going to see some similarities here. Now, whenever I've used this tool, I seem to find that when the magnetic lasso works well, so do some of the other selection tools as well, like the magic wand. So this is one of those times where I can't find an image that demonstrates how well the magnetic lasso handles the job, because in my view it's another case of see how it works and choose what tool works for you. Now maybe I can take this opportunity to remind you that most of the images I've used so far have just been straight JPEGs or Photoshop files, but we can actually apply selections and then later on layer masks even when we're working with a raw file from Adobe Camera Raw. If you look at the icon at the bottom right of my thumbnail, that denotes that this is a smart object, so I can start the process of making any selections that I want. But if I later on find that I want to make a change to this image, I can double click, open it straight up into Camera Raw, make my changes, and then open it back up into Photoshop. And of course, as long as I don't start distorting the image within Adobe Camera Raw, my selection is going to remain in place. Now we can adopt the same sort of techniques that we've used before, in so much as we would select our zoom tool and zoom in quite large to the image. How large is not critical, but get it quite big. Maybe that's a little bit too big, I'll drop it down a bit, and use that spacebar technique to click and drag the image into position. Then we're going to make our selection in bite-sized pieces, in other words one selection at a time. So if we go to the toolbox and select the magnetic lasso tool, we'll see a number of options at the top of the screen. Now I've done a number of tests with these, and when we talk about contrast, this adjusts how much of a difference there is between the color or brightness values between our subject and the background. It helps Photoshop to recognize the edge, but the one that I feel works best for me is the frequency, because when we use the magnetic lasso, it leaves a number of anchor points, and this determines how many anchor points we get. Now if I just start on the edge here, and I'll just do a little bit to show you how it works. I'm just going to click along here, and you can see how it automatically snaps to the edge, and then at some stage I have to go around and join up with the start, and then as long as we've got the add one selection to another, the little plus, then I can pick up here and I can continue, and we can build up our selection in that way. But here I'm going to hit Control D just for a moment, because if I go up to the frequency and increase that to something like 100, what you'll notice is that the anchor points are much tighter. And I've just found for this picture they tend to go around those little knobbly bits on the wing of the Angel of the North. And there you can see it doesn't take me too long before I can go around and join up, and then work around the image in the way we've done a number of times. So let me do a little bit more of this, holding the space bar, dragging my image to the left. I can go just inside the selection here, pick up and continue along. And of course we could take advantage of saving the selection if it was something we wanted to save. But there you can see I've gone quite some distance. My hand is now becoming a little bit uncomfortable in the position, so that's the place where I'll choose to go back, join up at the start, then I can move my image, get myself more comfortable. And don't forget, you've got the opportunity to use that rotate view tool if you need it, to get the image into a better position to make your selection. And remember, once again, double click and it'll reset. I'll do just a little more. Let me select my tool once again, See, these little bits that stick up are quite important here, but you can see here this sort of edge that I'm going around here. It's handling the tool pretty well, or the tool is handling the picture pretty well, but of course so would the magic wand. So there is always an argument that why use this method, because I can't really see a massive difference to using the magic wand, although given that we've increased the frequency here, we may be able to make a better selection of these little sticky uppy bits on the wings of the statue a little bit better than we may have done with the magic wand. But of course we're in that debate then, would it be quicker to click around the outer edge with the magic wand around the sky and remove the subject and then just adjust the little bits where we need it, or is it quicker to do it this way? Well, I think the jury's out on that one. Now there really isn't anything else I can say or demonstrate with this tool. If I just drop that frequency back again to, I think the default was 57, if I pick up and start to do this bit here, maybe it's not so efficient. See, it's not quite so efficient going around these little bits here. So the frequency to me for those fine details need to be up. Whoops, wrong one. Not sure how high this will go. Let's try 120. If we ever try to put a value in these boxes which is too high for the software, don't worry, it'll soon tell you. Hold that spacebar, click and drag. Not entirely sure what that was. I think it was telling me that because it's defaulted back to 100. So it seems that the frequency upper limit is 100. But if I pick up here again and start to move along, you can see that it does seem to ride around those areas. Although I'm giving it a bit of guidance, it does seem to ride around those areas pretty well. Control 0 will fit the image on screen. Now whenever I've used the magnetic lasso tool on a subject where the background is much more fussy than this sky, then I've not had the same success. So being honest with you, I think if I was going to cut out the Angel of the North statue from this particular image, I would probably use a combination of the magic wand and possibly also the polygonal lasso. So let me quickly demonstrate that, because I think we can make a selection of this pretty quickly. So I'm going to hit Control D to remove the selection. I'm going to select my polygonal lasso, and I'm going to start the selection way out on the left outside the picture space. Photoshop does allow us to create selections outside the picture space to make sure when we've got to select just a little bit down the edge we can do so with ease. But here I can start out there, go across to the bottom of, or the feet of the statue, because I wanted to clear those bushes on the left. I just want a straight selection underneath there, and then up to the right hand side, down to the bottom, right the way along the bottom and up. Then I can select my magic wand, make sure I've got the add one selection to another. Now when I click into the sky, you can see all I've got to do is click around a couple of times and I'll gather up the selection, and within a few seconds I'm looking around to make sure nothing's missing. There we have the selection made already. Now we're in more familiar territory, because we need to go up to the center top of the screen to select and mask to open the mask properties. The last time we was using the properties we must have left this set to black and white. What I'd like to do is to look at the Angel of the North against black. So I'm going to select on black. Now you can see it's come up with the angel in black and the background we can view. So I need to come down to invert to switch them around. Now the reason I want to look at it in this manner, and I do have a zoom on the left hand side, so I'm going to zoom in just a little bit. The reason I'm looking is because now I can start to see the little bit of blue that could form a halo if we took this subject and put it against a much darker sky. So with the image this big, now I can see what I need to do with the sliders on the right hand side. So I've got a 1 pixel feather that was left from obviously the previous job that we did. Something of this size, I think I've said this before, anything between 1 and 2. Let me risk 2 so you can get a feel for what that's going to do. But you can see we need to bring that edge in a little bit, shift edge to the left. Just giving a few seconds for the software to do its work. It looks pretty good. Maybe I can take a bit more. It's a huge subject, isn't it? So if we lose 2 or 3 pixels off the edge, it's hardly going to be a problem. Now if I hit Control 0 and fit the image back on screen, and although it's quite small on the screen, looking around the edge I can't see any hint of blue. So I think what I'll do here is I'll go down to my output and I'll select Layer Mask and OK. Now I would be saving my Angel of the North statue as a Photoshop file to retain both the layer and also the mask. But let me draw your attention back to the fact that we have this as a smart object. Because in previous videos we have often selected a different sky and we've dragged a subject like this into another sky or another subject. Well, while we've got this as a smart object, we've got the added advantage here of being able to double click that thumbnail and be straight back into Photoshop. So if, for example, it was my intention maybe to use my cutout in black and white, I can come back into Camera Raw. I could drop the saturation down. I could make a lot more of the contrast of the statue, because I can ignore what it's doing to the rest of the image, can't I? Because that's all masked away. And if and when I'm happy, I can click OK. There I have my black and white Angel of the North, and I still have my smart object should I change my mind. Now, one thing to say about the smart object status, because if I did want to move forward with this as a black and white and I wanted to add the mask to the image, I've saved my file, so I've got both parts saved, but if I right click, I don't seem to have any way of applying the mask. So if you wanted to apply the mask at this stage, you've got to be sure you're happy with your smart object. Now I don't really want to use it in black and white, so I'm going to put my color back, but I think I'll keep some of that contrast and I'll click OK. But once I've got it back in color, all I would need to do is to rasterize this layer. If I go to the right of the layers over here and right click, I can choose to rasterize it. That layer then returns to a standard layer. Then when I go to my mask and right click, then I can apply it. Now, as you can see with the spinning round of the screen, I've just slipped a new sky behind my Angel of the North just to give us something to finish on, and a layer mask up here. If I just hold the shift key and click the mask, I'll turn it off. So there you can see what we have. I've got a tiny blue tone on the sky, so that's a cool color, makes it recede into the background. The warm tone of the statue pushes it forward, and the mask created with the gradient tool just gives us the view that is just appearing out of the clouds.